For those of you listening to an audio archive of this show, I want to make sure that you know that there's a video version available as well. And you can find that link on the audio archives or also on my website, jackcross.com. So either way, we make it easy for you. This series honors the elements, the directions, and their connection to us. Today's segment is on honoring South and fire. Last month, we looked at air and the East. I want to review that just a little bit to remind you of some things. One exercise I suggested last month was that you take time to try to merge with the element of air, to find ways to make that a really deep and meaningful personal connection for you instead of just a conceptual framework. This is the way our ancestors who lived in shamanic cultures would approach these topics, and we connect with some of their energy, with some of their legacy when we do things in this way, when we are energetic beings more than mental beings. So since that broadcast, I've been spending a lot of time consciously interacting with air. And there are two qualities that really struck me, two qualities that held my attention through most of that practice time. That was the constancy of air, its presence, it's always there if we just choose to notice it, and also its variability. When I walk outside, sometimes it's very cool, other times it's warm, sometimes there's a lot of humidity in the air. Where I live in northern New Mexico, it's more often a dry quality to the air. At times there are gusts of wind, sometimes strong winds, other times very still. So I've decided to use those qualities of ever-presence and variability as an anchor for me. It calls me present because a part of my attention is on the air and my connection with it. And it's really deepened my appreciation and enjoyment of everyday things in life. This is one of the gifts of this sort of merging what the elements can bring. So in this month's show, and this month's assignment, if you will, we'll be working with South and fire. Some people have a fear of fire. They see its tremendous destructive potential. They see pictures of forest fires or homes being consumed by fire, terrible burns that someone's incurred. Yet realize that the element of fire also includes such things as light, energy, warmth, qualities that we depend on, qualities that are essential to life itself. So if you do have a fear around fire, I invite you to open to that and see fire in some of its other manifestations. That will certainly be a topic we'll touch on today. I want to do a grounding that's based on the work of Hazrat Inayat Khan. He was a Sufi master. I think he was in the 1920s, 30s, maybe 40s as well. And he's credited with bringing the faith of Sufism to the United States and to the West at large. Sufism is a mystical branch, an ecstatic branch of Islam. Like many other mystical traditions, it teaches that we can have a direct connection with spirit. We don't need to go through an intermediary such as a priest or an imam or a rabbi. We can have that experience for ourselves if we just come at it with an open heart. So one of the things Hazrat Inayat Khan did was develop a series, or maybe elucidate a series of breathing exercises that help us to connect with the individual elements. So instead of going through all four today, and actually there's a fifth because there's a breath to connect you with the center, I'm just going to focus on air and fire. So by doing two different ones, you'll get a sense of the different qualities, the different energies that these breaths can help you access. So let's all close our eyes. Breathe our energy back. We all get energetically attached to the things of the day. But this is a time to call our force, our power, our goodness back home. So use those inhales to breathe any energy that you may have outstanding. Breathe it in, and then on the exhale, you can dispel any old staleness, any old residue of things that you've really moved beyond, but you've still been holding on to a bit, things that are ready to be released. So using the breath as a dynamic force, bringing the energy, the light, the goodness into our systems with the inhale, and releasing anything that has already served its purpose that we don't need anymore, to make space for the next inhale. The elemental breath of air inhales through the mouth and exhales through the mouth. Now, you may have been taught in yoga classes or pranayama classes that you should breathe through the nose. We're doing this for a specific intent. I'm not recommending that you change to this form of breathing throughout your regular day. But deep inhale through the mouth and a full exhale through the mouth. On the exhale, after it feels like you've expelled all the air, pull the belly in a little bit more to get rid of that last bit that's sort of tucked away inside. And that way the next inhale will be larger. So continuing to breathe a few rounds in this way. We're not panting. The inhale is equal in length and strength to the exhale. And now feel into this inner state that this breath has perhaps evoked, continuing to breathe in and out through the mouth as you investigate. What does it feel like? Perhaps you feel some of the qualities of air, a feeling of buoyancy, of being lifted, mental clarity, an expansion of consciousness. Now let that go, come back to normal breathing, in the nose, out the nose. In fact, let's open the eyes for a moment. Maybe even shake the hands to move that energy. We want to come back to a neutral place, because next we're going to do the elemental breath of fire. So settling into your body again, even if that was a very pleasurable sensation you had with the air breath, you can always do it on your own. You can always go back there. Once again, closing the eyes in this neutral place. The breath of fire is in through the mouth, out through the nose. I've noticed that some people put extra emphasis on the exhalation in the breath of fire. And again, the instruction is equal length and strength between the inhale and exhale. So don't amp it up on the exhale. In the mouth and out the nose. Continuing to do the breath, take a little self-investigation. See what physical sensations, what emotions, what you feel in this place. Could be that you feel more energized, perhaps enthusiastic, perhaps creative, self-expressive. These are qualities of fire. So once again, returning to nostril breathing, inhaling through the nostrils, exhaling through the nostrils. Opening the eyes, shaking it off a little bit, coming back. Now perhaps in a later show we'll do the full cycle of 5 different elemental breaths, do them in sequence. They usually start with the earth and go counterclockwise. But in our study of the directions in the elements, we're starting in the east and going clockwise. It's as if though we're following a medicine wheel. We're going sunwise. Diocele is the name of that movement. Our ancestors would call in the elements, the directions, the earth, the sky, the innermost when they did ceremonies. They were revered as honored guests. Their help was called for, their assistance was called for, their guidance was asked for. So in a ceremonial setting, they would call them into the circle, asking them to bless the ceremony, the ritual, whatever it was, with their presence and their participation. Many of us don't go through such a formal calling. And yet if we come from our hearts and we reach out to the directions and the elements, we can access their power and their qualities. The south follows the east on our medicine wheel. The east, you may remember, was place of beginnings. So if you look at it in terms of a day, a 24-hour day, the east would be morning. The south would represent noon, and it's usually spoken of as noon, but I actually see it noon till afternoon when the heat of the day is building. The power of the day is manifesting itself. If we look at it in terms of a calendar year, the east represents spring, new beginnings, new growth. Whereas the south would hold the place of summer, an expansion on what the east has started, what was begun in the east. If we look at it in terms of human development, the east represents birth and infancy, again, beginnings. The south would be youth and adolescence. So I think a good image to hold for the overall energetic of the south is that playful energy that young people can bring. Oftentimes very creative, oftentimes very spontaneous. There seems to be no lack of energy there. And oftentimes it's accompanied with a joyful expression. So when addressing the south, a lot of times it helps us to adopt those qualities associated with the direction, to address it, to invoke it, to call it in. So the south is a place of opening. The element associated with the south is fire. And fire is very much associated with one particular representation of the South that I want to speak of, and that's the Archangel Michael. Now, I'm not referring to the figure in the Catholic Church, although there's some overlap. The Archangel Michael is a spirit that existed long before the Catholic Church or Jesus Christ. He was revered in many ancient cultures in the Middle East before the rise of Israel or the Hebrew people. So this is a very ancient spirit that's worked with humans for millennia. Archangel Michael is said to embody light. He is a light being. And by connecting him, by invoking his power, something of his light and his love of the light comes through. I've got an image of the Archangel Michael that I keep pretty close to me. This is in my studio. He's definitely an angelic being of light. It looks like it's a sort of stained glass window. He does hold a sword, but that is the sword of truth, which is used for cutting through falsity. It's not a sword used to attack demons. He has no need of a shield. In fact, in this image, he has an open hand raised to the sky, calling upon the powers of the sky, upon the powers of light. Similar to Archangel Michael, many of the deities of ancient and contemporary cultures that are associated with the sun can be used to invoke the powers of the south. So Ra, the principal deity of the Incas, because they saw themselves as children of the sun. Wankantanka to Lakota people. Apollo to Greeks. Helios. Many, many different forms in different cultures. So throughout recorded history, and certainly far beyond that into prehistory, people have been reaching out to the power of the sun, to the power of fire, to the power of the south. I think it's mostly in modern times that there's been so much cultural fear around fires. And that's perhaps partially due to the times that we live in. I'm in northern New Mexico, and we have tremendous forest fires out here, record-setting fires. In the last couple of years, we had the biggest fire on record in our state, also in Colorado, also in Arizona. So huge destructive potential there. And of course, this is due in large part to mismanagement of our forests. But I feel that many people have an internal image of fire as an enemy. And I hope I can work with you on that to show that we rely on fire and the power of fire. Without it, there could be no life possible. I have many associations with fire. One of them is I'm a member of our local volunteer fire department. And so I'm the guy on the end of the hose actively trying to suppress fires that catch in fields, in wooded areas, in houses, in outbuildings, wherever in our village. But I don't see fire as an enemy. It's not something I hate when I'm out there on the hose. It's in the wrong place. And so yes, I am trying to extinguish a fire, but I actually do so with a great respect for the fire itself. Perhaps some of that respect derives from the fact that we heat our house with wood. That's our only source of heat. And so pretty much every day through the colder months, I'm building a fire. I'm watching it. I'm cultivating it as an ally. I depend on that. It's a great experience for me to have that opportunity every day to work with the spirit of fire, because I do see it as a living spirit. When I light a fire in the morning, it's being birthed. When the wood starts to catch and flame with all its intensity, it's moving through a natural progression. that will eventually end when the fire dies down and there's just ashes remaining there. My relationship's probably influenced by the fact that I also love campfires. I'm frequently the fire tender at sweat lodges. I do fire walks. So I definitely am conscious of fire as a spiritual being, as something that can be reached out to, as something that can enhance our lives. And as one of the four basic elements, it's certainly part of our bodies and beings. Now, we don't have a raging fire inside us where you can see the flames, but nonetheless, we have a pretty high internal body temperature. True of virtually all mammals. We have a chemical combustion, a chemical fire that goes on within us nonstop. If it did stop, we'd be dead. Our very basis of life is based on principles of fire. Now, fire also represents energy. And it's important to seek balance. So just like a raging forest fire is fire out of balance. And we can think of examples of the other elements as well. A raging tornado or a hurricane would be air out of balance. Doesn't mean that air is an enemy. And it doesn't mean that fire is an enemy either. So in terms of energy, it's up to us, our individual selves, to develop the proper relationship. Certainly everybody knows people who are very apathetic. They just don't have much energy. They're just, oh boy, everything's such a struggle. You know, it's so hard. Oh, why bother at times? And we probably know people at the other end of the scale who are hyperactive, who just can't channel their energy. There's so much of it, you know, there's so many things to do, and boy, I got to start that, and yeah, I don't have time to finish that one, and yeah, something's calling me right now. Balance is the key, both inner balance and outer balance. So when we come into an inner balance with the element of fire, we have a consistent, good amount of energy available to us to fuel our activities. It doesn't come out as anxiety or nervousness or worry. It comes out as productivity and a willingness to engage and also to deepen. It's not just doing projects, it's to deepen as well, to see beneath the surface, to use our circumstances for growth and development. When we do that, we are in proper relationship with fire. So we seek a balance. And fire is a great element to use in balancing. Throughout time, fire has been associated with transformation and with purification. The things that hold us back, the obstacles in our lives. If handled properly, they can be seen as being burned away, falling away before the advance of our spirit. So many ceremonies that have the intention, have the underlying purpose of causing a person to transform, to change from one state of being to another, probably a higher, more rarefied, more inclusive state of being. They often use fire as the central element. So I pose a question to you. What's holding you back? What's keeping you from your dreams? From a full expression of yourself? Truth is, most people know. Sometimes they don't like the answer. Sometimes it's so obvious because they've heard it so many times. But if you really delve into it and you feel into it, using the heart as well as the mind, Most people can answer those questions. So if you get an answer that's easily put into words, I should say, an answer like, my resentment is holding me back, or my sense of injustice is holding me back. Every time I try to move forward, I just get consumed because there's so many things out there that are wrong. So that might involve some blaming as well. Could be a former relationship. Oh, I just can't get over my ex-wife. Or I can't get over the family that I was raised in. It's been all these years since I moved out, and they're in my head all the time. Whatever it is, you can use fire to help you move past it. You can design your own ritual. So the more real you make it, the more effective it's going to be. And I don't just mean bringing in a lot of props, but props can help. So let's say, need an example here. Yeah, I was stuck on my ex-wife for about a year. This was a long time ago now, but I'll use that as an example. I just didn't feel like I could move forward. So much of my energy was tied up in that failed relationship. It seemed like it just kept holding me down. So what I could have done at that time was go out in nature somewhere where I felt really open. Call on the elements, call on the directions to come into a circle that maybe I would draw with a stick in the ground. I might put a ring of cornmeal around that circle. I might sprinkle water around it. I might do a tobacco offering around it. Then call on the directions and the elements to be with me, to share their powers. Then I would feel that heaviness, that restriction that I carried energetically within me. I would give it expression, not denying it, acknowledge it, saying it's there. And I choose to release this. I choose to move past it. I ask for your help in doing so. Archangel Michael would be a good one to call on in a ceremony like that. One way to move past it is to write down the things that are holding me back, the things that I'm ready to surrender, the things I'm ready to release. Put it down in writing. Now, it could be a long writing, it could be a few pages long, or it could be just a short list of qualities. And then placing it perhaps in a container to confine the flames in the center of the circle. You call on the powers to witness you lighting that. You giving it to the fire. You calling fire in to help you move past this obstacle. And if you do something like that with real intent, not just make believe, not just pretend, not just playing at it, you really do it from a place of strong intention, fueled by your belief that you can do this with the powers of spirit allies, the shift will indeed happen. I'm not saying that everything will be resolved as soon as you step out of the circle, but it's going to be a lot easier. And your choices are going to be much more obvious to you. You'll be able to consciously pick, do I want to act this way, the old pattern of holding, of staying small, of feeling that I messed up, or do I want to act this way, taking a new route, connecting to the energy of fire, allowing it, encouraging it to open me as I move forward towards my chosen dream. So fire can be a great ally in these things. And of course, when you release something, then you're going to have the opportunity to replace it with something else. So when you're making that choice, it's a little easier. No, I don't want to go that way. I know I want to go that way. And to keep making that over and over again in your daily life. Once you're through with the ceremony, you release the directions, the elements, any spirit helpers you may have called in to assist. And then the real work begins. The work of integration. Because our lives are a series of choices. About every 5 minutes you have a choice. Which way are you going to do it? And if you stick to that path that you chose in the ceremony, everything will change. We're tremendously creative creatures. And when we ally ourselves with the elemental powers, it's truly amazing the things that we can accomplish. Things that once seemed impossible can become very easy. I mentioned before that the sun is often used as a symbol of fire, the power of fire. And of course, science tells us that the sun is the source of all life, with a couple of exceptions. There's some creatures that live in the very depths of the oceans that create energy from chemical reactions that don't directly depend on the light of the sun. But certainly everything living on the surface or near the surface, we are utterly dependent on sunlight. So we're dependent on its heat, we're dependent on its power, and often overlooked, we're dependent on its vitality as well. The sun supplies us with these basic ingredients of life and is the source of life on this planet. So it's only appropriate that we give thanks to it. You wouldn't want to fear the sun because it's something that you depend on. So much better to have a good working relationship with fire. I want to tell a story that happened at Lama Foundation, a spiritual community in northern New Mexico. And this happened, I think, around the mid-70s, maybe it was late 70s. Lama hosts many different groups, many different types of spiritual seekers and environmentalists, nature people. There are often Buddhists and Hindus and Christians and Sufis living up there together in harmony. It's a place dedicated to the awakening of consciousness. So that includes a lot of different religions and traditions. All are respected there. Well, back in the 70s, they were hosting a conference, a convention of solar power workers. These were designers, people who were converting the theory into practical ways that people could reap the benefits of solar power. And it just happened that the morning that the workshop was going to start, an elder from the Hopi Nation showed up unexpectedly, unannounced. He was a friend of Lama's. His name was Grandfather Joseph. So he was welcomed in, people were so happy to see him because very wise man, gifted with great seeing. So they had breakfast together, everybody happy, overjoyed at this unexpected delight. And then somebody had the idea, Grandfather Joseph, would you lead an opening ceremony for this conference? Yes, I will. He was very old at this time, maybe upper 80s, walked with a cane, so rather slow, but still very, very forceful, very potent man, filled with spiritual power. So in the main dome of Lama, he did an opening ceremony, calling upon the powers, calling upon the elements, calling upon the directions, opening people's hearts. And at the conclusion of the ceremony, he started walking out of the dome. His task, his function was over, and so he's on his cane, inching his way forward. And one of the retreatants asked, Grandfather Joseph, what do you think of solar power? And everyone turns expectantly to listened to his answer, expecting that he's going to say, "Oh, this is great. This is in keeping with the old teachings, and this is a good thing for the earth. This is a natural relationship you're working with." But he didn't. He said, "Solar power, no good." People were stunned. And somebody asked, "Why?" And he said, "Ask permission." It's so true. Those engineers and designers, although overall they were on a good path, I'm not questioning their motivations, yet probably most of them, if not all of them, were relying on their brain power to try to solve an energy problem, which was very pressing, a desperate need they were addressing. And yet, I would guess that many of them had not consciously opened their hearts very much. Maybe they did during that ceremony, but they were probably getting set to go right back into business and talk about designs, using their minds and not their hearts. So Grandfather Joseph's words, decades later, are still a call to full consciousness for me. Respect the sun. Ask permission. So when I installed a solar array at my house, early in the process, excuse me, before any construction had begun, while we were still talking about it, trying to figure out what would fit our needs best, I asked permission repeatedly because I wanted to be in right relationship with the sun. I didn't want to start to view it as an exploitable source of energy. I didn't want to start to see it as a commodity. I didn't want to be thinking primarily in how much money I was going to save in the long run. Now those thoughts do enter in. They're relevant. But I didn't want that to be my primary focus. Instead, I wanted to come into a deeper relationship with the sun and the element of fire. So very important to ask permission. When we do that, we open ourselves energetically, and it's really a heart opening that's taking place. With our programming, our background as Westerners, it's all too easy to revert into mentality, to weigh things conceptually, and to forget about all the other parts of our beings. Keeping a conscious connection with the elements can help us to keep our hearts open. So shamans throughout the world see the sun as a living being. I subscribe to that as well. I feel that it has a spirit, and that when I develop a relationship, my spirit and its spirit, then we're in a natural balance. And I'm just trying to think about things in regards to the sun or solar energy. I'm leaving a lot out of the equation. The Peruvians, the children of the sun, still do the ceremony, which I'm going to mention. I find it so touching and yet so ennobling. During the winter, and the Peruvians I'm talking about are mountain people. They live in the Andes. At Cusco, that's about 10,000 feet. Around Lake Titicaca, it's more like 12,000 feet, so they're way up there. The winters are very cold, very long. Whether there's snow in their area or not, very cold with a lot of wind. So very challenging conditions, especially for people, many of whom still live in stone and earth, essentially huts. But the old people, the people who stick to the traditional ways in those mountain areas, light fires not only for themselves to keep warm during the cold times, but they consciously send energy from their fires to the sun. A beautiful example of reciprocity. So they feel that during the winter months the sun is weakened somehow. It can't fully express itself. It can't share itself the way that it does in the summer. So they try to send some of the energy that they can make back to the source of all, back to the sun. We have an inner sun within us. It's one of the chakras. It's the will chakra, located in the abdomen, just between the belly button and the breastbone. Right in there. So I'd like to lead you in a visualization to make contact with that inner sun, that inner place of fire. Let's close the eyes once again. Deep, rich, nourishing breaths, inhaling through the nostrils, exhaling through the nostrils. Make sure that when you breathe, the belly is moving. So swelling on the inhale, contracting on the exhale. And again, you might want to do that little extra pull to make sure all of the air is expelled on the exhalation. Really settle in. That place of stillness and silence. I'm going to give you about a minute to get there. So bring your attention to the will chakra, to that place in the center of your body, between the navel and the breastbone, right in the abdomen. The center point of our physical form. And use the breath to go in there pretty deep. So if you encounter any tightness or tension, see if you can employ the breath as a means to soften that area, to allow your awareness to penetrate without forcing anything. If your heart is armored and shut down, it might take a little effort to get in there. But again, we don't use force. We take what's available. We work with what is ready to be worked with. In this place, I ask you to see in your mind's eye the color yellow, which is traditionally associated with this area. And see it as a brilliantly burning sun, a radiant sun, right in the center there. Might be very small at first, but use the breath to expand it, to intensify the color. I'm seeing a golden yellow right now. And as you connect with it, activate it so that it starts to expand. breath can be helpful, causing it to swell so that it fills the entire chest and abdomen area. Illuminating, warming. There might be some physical sensations you notice in addition to the visuals. And if you're not very visually prone, then it might be those sensations that become the focal point for you. That's fine. Feel how that light opens and invigorates the heart area, as well as the belly. And keep it growing until it fills the entire torso. Now that energy, that light, that brightness starts to move down the legs, through the muscles, through the sinews, through the bones, all the way down to the tips of the toes. A reservoir of light. And it starts to spill out into the arms as well. Touching, enhancing, perhaps healing, perhaps opening. All the way to the fingertips. And it begins to move up the neck, into the head, all the way to the top of the crown, until your entire physical form is filled with this light of the inner sun. And now encourage it to creep out of the pores, to start shining outwards from all parts of the body, until you're a glowing, radiant being. Might look like a luminescent egg around your body. And now release any efforting and just settle into the sensation. This is part of our birthright, this ability to connect with our inner energy and to bring it forth. A lot of society's domestication, its programming, attempts to shut that down, telling us that it's not appropriate, or we don't have the right, or it's not our turn. But we always have the right to shine our inner light, to shine our fire outwards, to express it, because that's the nature of fire. I want to read part of a prayer to you that one of my teachers, Heather Ash Amara, wrote. You can open your eyes or keep them closed, whatever you prefer. This elemental prayer addresses the four physical elements of air, fire, water, and earth, and also center. But I'm just going to read the section on fire to you. Element of fire. I invite you to join the sacred circle. May you ally with me as I ally with you through my awareness and respect. Power of passion, flame, and energy, please answer my prayers. Remove procrastination and blockages and infuse my being with the essence of fire. Bless me with the wisdom of right action. Direct my attention to my core integrity and ground me in joy between earth and sky. Balancing your element within me, help me know that I am whole. I used to say the full prayer every morning. I did that for a period of several months. Really deepened my connection to the elements and also to myself. That's what we get out of this work. It might seem like we're reaching outwards to something, to the power of the south, to the element of fire. But there's a correspondence within us that's activated by that reaching. So it goes both ways. We're reaching out and we're reaching in at the same time. Fire is an integral part of our being. The qualities, the aspects of south are integral parts of our lives, our developments as human beings. So the more we honor them, the more we respect them, means the more we're honoring and respecting ourselves. So I encourage you in the months to come to reach out and connect with fire. Remember, that includes not only flame fire, but also light and warmth and energy. Deepen your relationship with these things. The last couple of weeks, I've been walking around with a part of my attention on the things of fire. And it's just so enlivening to me. I get so encouraged, especially when I'm outside, when I notice the subtle differences in things like lighting. Sunrise and sundown have always been special times for me. I try to take a few moments at those times of day to just open myself, usually in awe, to what's being displayed, what's being shown, what's being revealed. Yet recently, I find that I'm bringing that same sort of almost childlike curiosity and sense of wonder to moments throughout the day. As I notice the light shifting due to a cloud or the wavering of a branch creating shadows, undulating motion, the look of water dancing on the the look of light dancing on the surface of water. There are just so many things out there. When I was being mindful of air, I was also paying a lot of attention to temperature. A sudden gust of air would bring, it was almost like a breath of warmth. Paying attention to these things causes us to be more alive. We deepen our experience, we deepen our appreciation, and we deepen our participation in life. The gift of life in human form is a precious one. I know a lot of people are in suffering out there. Yet this is a precious gift. No matter what hardship we're going through, it is possible to at least experience moments of upliftance and connection. A great way to do that is by simply connecting to the elements that surround us at all times, that make up our body and beings at all times. Well, I want to share with you some other offerings that are coming up on Human Spirit Radio. I love this group. The hosts work for free. The material's distributed for free. It just can't get any better than that. So hopefully you'll continue to tune in. The first Friday of every month is Maria West. Her show is entitled Waking Gods and Goddesses, Embodying Divine Wisdom and the Sensual Life. That airs at 2 o'clock Pacific time. And her last show was on February 7th, so it's available in the archives for you. That last show was entitled Orgasmic Birthing with Amber Hartnell. Interesting topic. You probably know that the second Friday of each month is my time slot at 2 o'clock Pacific. I will be continuing on with the 7 sacred directions. Next month we will be, we will be experiencing the direction of west and the element of water. Very powerful. They're all powerful, but the water element in us, as you know, our bodies are mostly water. We live on a planet whose surface is mostly covered by water. Water is associated with life. And so this particular element is like a direct connect for a lot of us. Many times when people do elemental prayers or exercises, it's the ones connected with water that just resonate so much, because we are creatures of water. Makes sense. Now, the third Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. Pacific is our very own Jessica Gabriel McKay. Her show is entitled You're Already Psychic. Tools to strengthen your intuition, follow your divine guidance, and live a joy-filled life. Wow, that's a lot. I really liked her show last month on the Tarot. I've been putting that to good use. So a lot of good information, a lot of practical stuff in her show, but it's delivered from a very expanded approach. So fresh perspective. And her next show is entitled Empathetic Sensitivity, Clearing Your Energy. Wow, sounds great. The third Friday of each month at 2 o'clock Pacific is Human Spirit Radio founder, Sarah McCroskey. She is the grandmother of Human Spirit Radio. We're all very, very thankful that we were born at the same period that she was, that we're occupying the planet at the same time, because she does some wonderful things. Her next show will include author and soul-level astrologer Max Borax. It's entitled You and the Year of the Horse, so very relevant information. Hopefully you can tune into that. And the last Friday of each month at 2 o'clock Pacific is Amanda Eloish Johnson. Her show is The Conscious Evolution of Divine Feminine Archetypes. Now, I am a somewhat regular listener, and for men out there, I want to tell you, this has a lot of good information for guys as well. The focus is on feminine archetypes, but she speaks of things that involve all human beings, so don't be put off by that. Her next show is The Conscious Evolution of the Priestess Archetype, Embodying Empty Presence. So I hope you make time for these offerings. I hope they touch you deeply. I hope they help you to connect with a sense of inner self. The answers are not out there. They're in here. Yet at times, something out there can help you find what's always in here, just waiting for your attention, waiting to be discovered. It's all a matter of waking up. So be wakeful, my friends, and I will talk to you next month. Goodbye for now.